What's going on, YouTube? This is my first video, and in this video, I will be explaining part one, why I got out of the military and some of my military experiences, since I've been in. I was in, a little bit of backstory for me, I was in for 10 years. I enlisted in 2011. I got out in 2021. I was in the Air Force, United States Air Force. I started off as a reservist at, some of y'all may know, Pope. It's in Fayetteville, North Carolina. I started off at Pope as a reservist. Then when Pope shut down, I transferred from Pope to Charlotte, North Carolina, National Guard. So I went from reserve to Air National Guard, and a little bit of active duty time with 2 deployments in between there and orders and everything else. Some of y'all may know what that means. But basically I got some TDYs and, different stuff to do in between time, volunteer work. So I want to start off with, this is my, like I said, this is my part one. Y'all stay tuned for this, because y'all gonna want to hear everything that happens all the way into the last part, okay? Because it gets better, progressively better, or worse, depending on how you look at it over time. So here's my first experience. My first bad experience in the military was I had a bad supervisor, horrible supervisor. And I want y'all to know, in this video, I will be name dropping. I will use profanity. So if you do not want to hear profanity, click off this video now. I will use profanity. I will say a few things that may be abbreviated or an acronym or something like that. If you don't know what it means, I'll do my best to put the stuff that I actually say that are acronyms on the video, or you can comment on the video and I'll tell you what it means if you don't already know. Or some of this stuff you can actually Google. So as I was saying, my first bad experience was I had a horrible supervisor. His name was he was a master sergeant, and his last name was Osborne. He was horrible. So let me tell you what happened. 2013, my unit that I was with at the time was the 440th FSS. If you don't know what FSS stands for, it stands for Force Support Squadron, FSS. So there's your first acronym. They put out a email asking who wanted to go on a deployment. I think I might have been 20 at the time, about to be 21 now. I think I turned 21 that year. I put my name in the hat. I said, I want to go. I've never been on a deployment before. I wanted to experience it. And they ended up selecting me. I said, sweet. As a reservist, and anybody that might be watching this video, if you're a reservist, you understand what I'm about to say. We want to make as much money as possible. You're not active duty. So a lot of times, being that young, I was still trying to figure out what to do with my life. And I hadn't figured it out yet, but I knew I wanted to make some money. So I was selected for the deployment, and deployment was to Qatar. Doha, it was to Qatar that year, or Qatar. Some military say Qatar. We get there. Everything was fine at first. I had my own room. I was a part of services. Some of you don't know what services is. If you ever go to an Air Force base, the people that run the hotel that might be on base, the people that run the gym, the people that work in the chow hall, those are all services people. That's what I was a part of. So we get there. I had my own room, and maybe about, maybe a month in, they ended up putting the staff sergeant in my room with me. Now, keep in mind, I'm young. I'm only an A1C. Okay, so here's your second acronym. A1C stands for Airman First Class. So they say A1C, Airman First Class. So I was an Airman First Class at the time. And they ended up putting, stop, girl. I'm sorry, y'all have a puppy. I had a staff sergeant that they put in my room. Now, I'm at work one day, and they come in, the leadership, my supervisor, the commander, and the first sergeant all pulled me out of work. And I'm actually thinking I'm about to be promoted. So they pulled me out of work. They like, Airman Weldon, come over here. We want to talk to you. I'm like, oh man, I'm about to be promoted. I'm all happy. I'm like, this is it. I've been waiting on this. And they like, what's going on with you and your roommate? I'm caught off guard. And I'm like, I don't know what you mean. They're like, oh, he's complaining that the room is junky and it smells. I'm like, my room? Now, to be honest with y'all, I hadn't even fully, we was only there a month. To be honest, I was nervous about everything. I hadn't fully unpacked. I still had uniforms in my bag. You know, I had a few civilian clothes that I had bought from the BX. But other than that, I didn't really have, everything I had was still packed. I was kind of living out of my bag at the time. So they said, well, we're going to take you over to your room and we're going to see what it is he's talking about. Stop, girl. So I said, fine. We get there. And of course, my room it's in tip top shape. I mean, there's nothing. My bed was made. There was nothing laying around. All my toiletries was in my wall locker. They were on a shelf. We had a TV in there, but it was a TV that was left by, I guess, the previous, you know, airman or whoever was in the room before me. They left it, but I never watched TV. Most of my time was working, sleeping, or working out. That's all I was doing for the first month. And so they said, well, they took me to the room. They got him. They got him out of work. Brought him to the room as well. I'm sorry, I'm smoking hookah, y'all, too. Sorry about that. So, and the leadership says to him, well, show us what it is you're talking about. So I'm standing there clueless, like smells junky. And I'm looking around the room like, what is he talking about? They say, well, we don't see what it is you claimed. He's like, well, the room smells. And to this day, I cannot remember that sergeant's name. But the room smells and there's all this stuff everywhere. And they were like, well, we don't see anything. So I ended up, long story short with that, I ended up not getting in trouble from that leadership that was there on that base at the time. Maybe about 2 days later, I get an email from my supervisor, who was a master sergeant, and he's in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Now, we're in Qatar. We're overseas. He sends me an email, and he says in this email, I'm paraphrasing, yeah, I hear that you're misrepresenting the 440th over there. When you get back, you got paperwork waiting on you. So I'm like, at this point, I'm really caught off guard. I'm flabbergasted because I don't understand where this is coming from. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I haven't gotten in trouble for anything. Nothing has happened. So I send him an email back and I'm saying, hey, I'm not sure what it is you're referring to. If you're talking about the situation with a staff sergeant, and here's what I ended up figuring out. I ended up figuring out after the fact that the staff sergeant didn't feel like he should have been put in a room with an A1C. And instead of him going to his supervisor or leadership and saying, hey, can you put me with other sergeants or, someone maybe, higher rank, or maybe give me my own room, he went and tried to throw me under the bus in order to get his own room or his own space. But all he had to do was be honest. All he had to do was be honest and just tell his leadership, hey, I would rather stay with somebody either my equal rank or more, or whatever the case may be. But he figured, he's just the A1C. Let me go and say that his room is X, the room is XYZ, and the leadership. And I think he probably thought they would just take his word for it. They wouldn't actually investigate. So anyway, let's go back to the email. So I said to my supervisor, I said, hey, I'm not sure what it is you're talking about, but I haven't been in trouble for anything, so I don't know how I'm misrepresenting the 440th. And so he sends me an email, and he's like, he responds, and he's like, oh yeah, you got paperwork waiting on you when you get back. You got an LOC waiting on you when you get back. For you that don't know what an LOC is, it's a letter of counseling. He said, you have an LOC when you get back. And that infuriated me because I felt like as my supervisor, he didn't even take the time to say, well, what happened? I heard something happened. What happened? Let me get your side of the story and then figure. But you're not even here. You're in North Carolina. So apparently, I don't know what, and at the time, it was only 3 of us that were selected to go out of maybe like 20 in the unit. It was 3 of us that selected. The other 2 people that deployed with me didn't work in my facility. They worked on the other side of the base. So I never saw them. Now we lived in the same living quarters, but we didn't work in the same area. So there was a part of me that felt like maybe one of them went back and maybe got wind, heard something. Maybe somebody told them, oh yeah, that airman over there, that's from y'all unit. and then maybe mixed the story up, maybe exaggerated and it sounded worse. And then they went back and told, I still to this day don't know. I just know that I got a random email from him. So that told me that somebody told him something. And so I was infuriated. And I was content with getting kicked out of the military at that time. I said, I'm about to let this guy have it. So I started typing him an email. And if y'all had saw this email, y'all would have thought I was talking to somebody on the street. I said whatever I wanted to say in this email. And I was typing it up. And it just so happened that my supervisor from my facility at the time was walking by. Sergeant Blushi. I remember him like he was yesterday. One of the best supervisors I've ever had. Sergeant Blushi. I'm not sure if he's still in or not. But he was walking by and he's like, oh, what you typing up? And he started to read it. And he's like, who you sending that to? I said, my supervisor back home. He said, well, what happened? I said, remember the situation where the staff sergeant said the room was, he was like, yeah, I remember. I'm like, my supervisor back home apparently is going to have paperwork waiting on me for that. And he said, no, this is not what we're doing. So he deleted my email. He said, let me type it up for you. So he typed it up. And he was like, let me show you how to say what you want to say without saying what you want to say. And at the time, I didn't understand that. But once he typed up the email, I fully understood. I said, okay, this is a more professional way to really get my point across. And so he typed it up and sent it. A few days later, Master Sergeant Osborne, he responded and he said, and I think that email, because it was so professional, it infuriated him even more. He was like, well, don't worry about it. You got paperwork waiting on you. I said, okay, cool. Needless to say, when I got back, I ended up having paperwork waiting on me, but it was for something unrelated. It was for, I had overspent on my GTC card at the time, which was a mistake on my part. GTC, for y'all that don't know, GTC is a government travel card. I had overspent on it and I ended up having to pay it back, and I didn't pay it off in time. And so I ended up getting in trouble behind it, but that's a totally other story, totally unrelated to this one. But that experience was one of the first experiences that I had that I felt was bad from a supervisor standpoint. Being a young airman, I mean, I was only 20 at the time. That's not an excuse for bad behavior or doing the wrong thing, but I felt like I was being treated a certain type of way for whatever reason that I couldn't really explain. I couldn't really understand at the time, being that young. And, for someone that's supposed to be your leader or, guiding you through your career, that's supposed to have your best interests at heart. I feel like, because later on years afterwards, when I became a supervisor, I took care of my people. All of the people that were under me, I took care of. And there's not one troop that say I didn't take care of them, because I've taken heat, I've gotten in trouble, I've stuck my neck out, I've done all types of what I feel a supervisor is supposed to do. And I felt like my supervisor didn't do that. I felt like he heard a story that was fabricated, and he never explained to me exactly what it is he heard. He just told me I had paperwork, which I thought was very weird. I feel like as a supervisor, if you're going to hand down disciplinary action, there needs to be a conversation to have. There was no conversation that was had between me and him. It was, oh, I heard you did wrong, I'm writing you up, which I think is the absolute wrong way to go about it. Whether it's civilian world or whether it's military, no matter where you are, to jump straight to disciplinary action for something, I feel is discriminatory at times. I also feel like you as a supervisor don't have the necessary experience to be a supervisor. You don't know what a supervisor is, because a supervisor is not always a person that is supposed to be disciplinary action. A supervisor is also supposed to be a person that's reasonable, that has conversations with the people, establishes a rapport with the people that you're supervising. And a lot of military supervisors don't do that. They believe that the military is supposed to be hard all the time. They feel like it's supposed to be, disciplinary action. You mess up, you get disciplinary action. And there are a lot of supervisors out there in the military that fully understand what it means to be a supervisor. I've met quite a few of them in my life. But like I said, that was the first bad one. This is part one. I want y'all to give me y'all's ideas and comments down below. Do y'all think that I was wrong in the situation, or what would you have done in this situation like mine? Till next time, to part 2. Peace.